We're here with Jeb Boyt, one of the 8 candidates running for Austin City Council District 7. Thank you for being here, Jeb. Tell us why you are going to be the best leader for Austin and for the environment.
Well, I have the most experience, and more than 20 years of experience working on environmental issues, working with Austinites. I moved here in 1993. I'm a native from Liberty County. I've worked as an environmental attorney for the Land Office and the Railroad Commission, working on open beaches, water quality, protecting wetlands, and other issues. And here in Austin, I've worked with Austin Metro Trails and Greenways, developing trails, greenways, protecting the environment, getting people out in contact with the environment. On the Parks Board, I similarly did work to improve our parks, promote environmental education, and promoting the development of our natural aspects of our city. And with the Alliance for Public Transportation, I've worked on transportation issues, public transportation issues, really trying to give people real alternatives to how they get around than getting around in a single family car, whether that's their own bicycle, bike share, transit, rail, all those issues. Okay. Trying to make sure we have the mix.
Let's go more depth on transportation.
Sure.
You are for the Prop 1.
Yep.
And say more about your vision and where we need to be headed. You've obviously put a lot of thought into this.
Yes, well, with the Alliance for Public Transportation, I've been very involved in the Prop 1, development of the Prop 1 proposal and the discussions over the last 2 years. Attended most of the public meetings and followed the process very closely. I think the overall Project Connect vision is a good vision, particularly if you look at the North Corridor plan, which is an example of what they want to do for each of the areas around town. Okay. Is the best example with they're looking at expanding the rapid bus service to Round Rock and Pflugerville, in adding a new rapid bus line roughly along the Palmer right away, and then so doing similar work. We have going in and looking and trying to figure out what we're going to do on 360 to improve traffic flow there, fixing the Y at Oak Hill, but doing it in a way that doesn't destroy Williamson Creek and send even more floodwaters going down toward the people who flooded so badly last Halloween. Right. So that's a nutshell. Oh, and especially I'm very committed to the I-35 Reconnect Austin vision.
Which is to sink it.
Which is to sink it or to put caps over it, on parkway connections. That's the I-35 improvements. We've made some real success at actually getting beyond just throwing up our hands and saying it costs too much and we just don't know how to do it.
Right.
We're ever going to find the money to do it. They've broken it down into a bunch of manageable bite-sized pieces, and we're just going to work through each one at a time. At the end, we're going to get to the point where the city can put the caps over I-35 and have the parks and the full connections. That's a great vision. I think we should also look at doing that down at Congress and South First over Ben White too. Okay.
So say more about land use and land use planning and what you think about Imagine Austin and what's happening with Code Next development, and if you think that's going to get us to a sustainable city.
Well, I think it's a great move, toward a sustainable city, and certainly the vision, the key vision of Imagine Austin, the compacted, connected city, is something I firmly believe in and I've worked to. During the Imagine Austin process, I organized a group called the Austin Urban Coalition. It was a coalition of environmental and new urbanist groups that followed the comprehensive plan process that developed this. And in part two, this was composed of people who had worked on the centers concept that as developed by the Planning Commission and in Campo. That was then picked up and used in the Imagine Austin process as well too. And so that vision of having activity centers where we're directing infrastructure, we're directing development that can be easily served by transit. So moving away from sprawl as much as we can, and providing people good alternatives, places to live where they can have a choice about whether they need. Whether they can get by with only one car or whether a family can get by with even no car.
Right.
I think that those are real opportunities, and so it also help keep our taxes down by focusing our infrastructure investments that we need to serve the community.
And one of the investments you say in District 7 is a priority is bikeways.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And there are one of the biggest issues in cycling for a long time in Austin has been getting between 183 up north, basically through the Domain area as it is now. We have made some small improvements. We've got the bike access connection to Jollyville Road now. We're extending, as part of the MOPAC improvements, the Shoal Creek Bikeway at least north of 183. We need to extend the Shoal Creek Bikeway on into the domain. But really what I want to look at, we're working on the Walnut Creek Trail, getting that finished and connected. In those connections, we've got the Metro Trail on the Metro Rail line to work on. But the big thing I want to look at is to really focus on improvements in the corridor from ACC Northridge to the Kramer Lane Rail Station, to the Domain, to the Pickle Campus, to the Arboretum and Jollyville Road, so that we have good pedestrian, bike, and transit connections all through that area.
Great. Okay. Public green space is related to everything you were just saying. Say more, like, why is that a priority for District 7?
Well, District 7 is one of the more underserved areas, for public green spaces, and there's a real need. And when we were building the bulk of District 7 out in the second half of the 20th century, we didn't put a lot of land aside for parks. We didn't invest much in parks, and that's a real deficit. That
How do
people
we go
see
back?
needs to be dead.
How do we capture
Well, I
it?
mean, we can. There's a couple of things we can look at. We can look at land the city already owns as a way to do it. We can look at opportunities to purchase new lands, and there are some big opportunities. The Robinson Ranch, which is just northwest of District 7, is a big opportunity that the city is looking at developing out in the future. But then the other thing, of course, we really need to do is look at new developments and look at the improvements of green space as part of the developments, and then also really to public plazas and other public spaces beyond just park spaces. So really usable public spaces.
Okay, that sounds good. Flooding and erosion is another priority you've referred to. What can be done? What do you think we need to be doing?
Well, there's a lot that can be done.
Not less pervious cover.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's actually a big one. Is less impervious cover. We've got some especially on Anderson Lane, older shopping centers that were built back in the 70s and earlier, with like no stormwater controls. So just putting some kind of stormwater controls in place can help those projects. This isn't going to be any big project. It's lots of small projects. But really, I think if we take a comprehensive watershed approach, and District 7 is basically defined by the Shoal Creek watershed and the Walnut Creek watershed. But starting at the top of the watershed and looking at impervious cover and runoff and trying to slow the runoff, and then doing projects to stabilize stream banks and restore riparian habitats. All the way down the watersheds. There's a lot of great opportunities that we can do on that.
All right, let's shift to energy. Looking at where we're currently getting our energy and where we should be getting it, in your opinion. Please touch on also coal, nuclear, gas, and all the other choices we have in terms of renewables and whatnot.
Well, see, our current portfolio certainly is coal, nuclear, gas. We have the biomass plant, which we've never used, wind, and then solar. I think that's our full portfolio at this time. And we need to have a portfolio in a mix because there are different issues. Sun shines during the day, wind blows at night in West Texas. So you have to keep the loads balanced. The peak demand in Texas is traditionally in the summer afternoons when people are running their air conditioners.
Address Decker and Fayette and nuclear.
Yeah, exactly. So this comes around here in that, like, one of the main reasons we've had coal plants and gas plants is because when you need more energy in the hot summer afternoons, you can just load them up with more coal or gas and run it that way. By moving more aggressively towards solar, it can work great in the afternoons to address those demands. We can both. I think we have to look at both the large-scale solar projects, community solar projects, which are smaller projects that people are able to buy into, including renters would be able to buy into. For service, and then distributed solar, which would be panels on the roofs of houses and businesses, and going that way. So I think moving as much into that we can. Should we go so far as to require
that the rooftops be ready or oriented right, or I mean?
I think solar-ready houses, definitely is a factor. Orientation might be getting a bit far, but certainly making sure that the houses have the wiring, the roofs are stable and the supports, and those elements are something that we can make it easy for people to put panels on the roof. And then even beyond that, one option that has worked in some communities has been to have third parties come in who actually own the panels, and then they lease the panels out to the homeowners.
Right. That's about to start being allowed.
Exactly. But there's been some resistance here Austin for doing that. But so definitely trying to look to provide that alternative, especially to avoid the large capital cost associated with installing solar.
Okay, so quickly,
but Decker and Fayette. Fayette, Decker, and
Nuclear.
Nuclear, yeah. So we need to phase the nuclear out. It's been a bad deal from the get-go. It uses a lot of water. We've never figured out what to do with the waste.
Yeah.
That's just a liability a bill we keep passing down the road. Fayette, on Fayette, I know some folks want to shut it down as soon as possible, or even sell it off. I'm in favor of shutting it down. I'm concerned that if we just sold it off, whoever we sold it to, we just want to burn it as much coal as they could to generate power, and I think that would be counter to the goals that we're looking at. So we have to look carefully at that and see, how best we can manage that in a rundown of that plant, or a slow step down of the use of that plant. On the Decker plant, there's some possibility about closing that plant, and actually, and this goes to the situation where Decker Lake is currently used for cooling water for the plant, and one of the things in the recent water management plan was the discussion of potentially using that lake for water management.
Right.
So that brings in an added element there. So
let's shift to water conservation, because I know that's one of your top priorities.
Sure. Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, so we've had the drought ongoing. Great uncertainties around this, added uncertainties around climate change, about what really our future weather patterns are going to look like. Conservation is our best bet moving forward. Under our water contracts with LCRA, right now we've got a locked-in price, but once we go over, I think it's 200 acre-feet in our water use, we have to pay a step-up market price on a large portion of our water. So conservation in both better manages the water we have and keeps our rates as low as they can be now for the future. So we really got to just aggressively pursue that in every way we can. And San Antonio does far more conservation than we do, so there's many more opportunities that we can look at for improving conservation here in Austin.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity to talk with you.
And thank you very much. It's been great coming in to talk about these things. So,
excellent.